Get this warmed up a little bit. See if some people start coming in. All right, guys. Today I have Tequila Matchmakers here online with us. Hopefully answer some questions. I know what we're all looking for. So we'll save that a little bit till the end. Meanwhile, we will talk about the Tequila Matchmaker app and how it can help you make possibly better decisions on your next purchase of tequila. I would like to introduce Grover, the person behind it, and unfortunately his wife didn't join us, Scarlet. But I mean, these two are embraced in the culture and the craftsmanship behind Tequila Matchmaker and the whole tequila world. Thank you for joining us. Grover, thank you again.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
So you have this amazing app, and I've seen over the last several years of some renditions, from the, not so very basic looking. I'll leave it at that. How about that? Very basic looking to this new sexier look that you have now, but I'm already starting to see some changes on a few of the pages, both online and I think on the website app.
Yeah,
So can you explain a little bit what we got going on?
sure. The first, this is like super small scale. It's been a very small team since the very beginning. I think the app is going on 12 years old now. Um, and we have self-funded it from the uh, first time, and it's still that way today. We have never taken any investment. There's been offers, but we've never taken any money. And we prefer to kind of like do an organic, slow growth, kind of thing. And it's maybe frustrating for a lot of people because they get excited, they want to see more features or see things progress faster. But when you take investment money, you are able to speed up, and when you speed up, sure, you can help people get the features that they need, but you're also like sacrificing independence. You have to give up ownership of your company to another person who now has input on what's going on, and I've lived that in another part of my life. I'm a co-founder of a company that's in New York. And every time we accepted funding, another person gets added to the meeting table who has input, and I just was tired of that. So the app first started as a way for me to kind of like have something to do that wasn't controlled by investors and bankers and all that kind of stuff. So, and it still serves that role today, which is great. In the beginning, oh, it was super crude, super basic. Like,
Yes.
I mean, how long have you been? I should go look up your stats and see how long you've been a member. But like, if you
It,
were, I mean,
it's been a while, and it kind of had that wood paneling look, and
okay.
yeah.
Um, I think that was the second. That was the second version. The first version. Whew. Yeah. So it was. We had to make some assumptions. The tequila category is a little complicated. You have all these different distilleries, and you have different lot numbers, and barrel numbers and versions, and all these different categories of tequila, and they all have to kind of like come together.
Right.
And then the way people want to rate and talk about them and stuff like that, we sort of had to learn all that stuff on the fly. And so the very first version of the app, we got a lot of stuff wrong. We were just like, whoa, okay, we have to like retool the database and restructure how we uh, manage the gnome numbers and all that kind of stuff. But then but then we kind of like settled in on what we thought was like a pretty good um, basic approach
Hmm.
for the second version, and then for the third version, which is what you're seeing now, was when we integrated information about people. So as you use the app, it tells you about you, and that's what really people really like that. Once they started getting information about themselves, and I guess it's just everything's about me in my
Yeah.
world. But once they started learning about their palate, their likes and dislikes, um, the app was able to kind of help them make sense of why they were making the decisions they were making. Oh, I didn't realize I really am responding to brick oven products, or I didn't realize, like for me, I didn't even know that, like, my I tended to like products that were stainless steel with copper coil on the inside. um, you know I learned that from our own app. So it's stuff like that. Was really helpful, for a helpful tool for people to learn production, what production processes do, and how it affects them, and the final product. So it was a nice way to teach people about the process of tequila.
And then, kind of when I really started diving deep and trying to find what I most enjoyed on my palate with my palate, I started, I was a lot more entering in the information, and I was using that data to try to help me figure out what brands I should be purchasing,
Right.
which was a huge helping for me, save obviously a lot of money not buying tequila I don't enjoy as much, but also finding the flavor profiles that mostly turned me on, and the app, making these suggestions. And for the majority of the part, I'd say it was pretty good. Of course, the more data and the longer you're on, I understand that whole role that, it starts to fine tune things because you have a wider
Yep.
spread of the data. And it was very helpful for me to kind of, early on in my journey into the tequila world, really helped me, and logging, taste notes and stuff like that. And I really did enjoy that.
So what did the app tell you? Did it tell you you liked any particular type of cooking, or?
Uh, I was chasing more of the flavor profiles. I really found that I liked the citrus notes um, a lot more than um, the salty brinier or the smokier stuff. And I really started to hone in on it. And, you know then I went to hell in a handbasket. I was spending money every weekend buying another bottle of tequila, and
Uh-oh.
uh, and now, I got this enormous room filled with tequila, and I invite friends over, and I love to share it with them and share my experience. And then I start playing the mind game with them. It's like, okay, what do you like about this, or what don't you like about this, and how can, I hone in on their flavor profile of what they like. And it's fun. It's really entertaining for me, and I do it quite frequently. I get a group of guys that comes over, and we sit down in my man cave, and we just start sipping stuff, and a lot of them bring stuff as well. Uh, some amazing tequilas have shown up. Um, some of the first teardrop Chinaco
Oh,
tequilas showed up, and oh, if there was a bottle that I wanted to get left behind, it was that one.
yeah. It's kind of interesting to, if you've been trying drinking tequila over the years, to taste the differences as the years go by. I've noticed, I don't know, maybe you have too,
Hmm.
that like their predominant aroma and flavor profiles kind of like move through all of the products from year to year.
Yeah.
Um, and you know it would be super fun if someone could do a like a scientific analysis as to why that's happening. But like I'm suspecting that the agaves in Jalisco, right, are pretty much all getting the same amount of sunlight, the same amount of rain, and so like you know, it's probably related to to that. And I don't know. There was a period of time when I felt like everything was very like melon, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a time when everything was very had a like a celery, like a celery thing to it. Um, I think we just kind of came out of a mint phase where everything was kind
Hmm.
of minty, and now I feel like we're going into more of a like an anise, like a licoricey anise
Yeah.
uh, kind of thing. So
And do you think it's due to weather? Um,
eh,
Soil changes? I mean, it's
I
it's
wouldn't.
all worked over pretty hard.
I don't know. I would love someone to do a study on this. I don't know if you ever could, but um, because like I was talking to some producers once. I'm really a big fan of that old school celery, you know, flavor. And so I started asking producers, hey, what could you do? Could you do something in your process to bring that back? And the answer was always like, no, man, that was coming from the agave. Like
Hmm.
the agave doesn't give that to us, then when it can't be in the final product. Um, so um, so that's when I was like, oh man,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
because
longer days, hotter, colder, a lot of very rainy. Maybe it just changes what's going on with all the agaves in the region. So anyway,
yeah, yeah, that Chinaco just blew me away. I was, and it was the first lot of it, and I can't believe he broke it open and let us all sit there and drink on it one night. I was just blown away. And you really have to wonder, I mean, from when it was first bottled compared to all these years, because what that was probably 84 when that was probably bottled,
oh my God,
and we just cracked it open late last year and we're sipping on it. And I made several trips back to that bottle, and we had a bunch of bottles out there, and it was an amazing experience to try them. And this is the same guy that also introduced me to a very old Herradura, and it doesn't even compare to
yeah,
today.
that's for
Of
sure.
course, you got diffuser, all these things that we don't want in our tequila, and that's where you kind of stepped in and tried to make it, you know, educate, which I think you're doing an amazing job of educating the consumers.
Thank you.
Um, I think out of all the spirit lines, I think tequila people, because of your tool, is educated the consumers better than any other spirit.
Well, there are a lot of fellow tequila nerds out there, so you know, um, it seems like there's more and more every day.
Yes.
um, uh, but if we had a positive influence on that's great. Um, you know, sure. It's it's really it's a unique case. Tequila is a very special industry. I think the agave is very special. I think that there's a lot of information that's out
Hmm.
there. Like people do want to know how something was made, and the production processes from distillery to distillery are very different, and they're often touted in the marketing materials and in the uh, on the websites and stuff like that. Like brands will talk about their process, and so you can find this stuff out,
Hmm.
which is not really that the case so much for other spirits. Um, so so it's just the category, the spirit itself. um, is conducive to being able to have a lot of data so that people can learn. It just, we wanted to put it in a format where people could easily access it and then see the relationship between each of the processes, and then their own palettes.
Right. And then the regions. I mean, regions, having highlands, lowlands, valleys, being able to, kind of know where your tequila is coming from and how much of an influence that may have on the agaves and so forth. I would say, from my own experience, the one that is blatant is Chinaco compared to a lot of other people because they're so far apart. Your Gulf side versus,
Yeah.
you know, Pacific or Central Mexico. And, you know, it has this unique flavor profile, even in the newer bottles, where it's a little bit more creamier, brinier. And I'm using the anejo. That one happens to be one of my favorites. It and it's so much different than some of the stuff that you get there in Jalisco, and it's kind of eye opening, especially when you're trying to drill down and using your app to try to figure out what it is that you love, and being able to see such a swing by tasting these different tequilas.
Just as this is a little heads up, something that's coming. I haven't talked about this yet publicly, but I will now. Um, there's a new tequila brand that's about to come out. It really hasn't officially launched yet, but they're getting ready to start talking about it.
Hmm.
The distillery is made in a town called Mazamitla. Um, at 9,000 feet above sea level.
Wow.
So it's really, really high up there. And I went there to see the place and uh, taste the product, and I was like kind of blown away by how different it was and how good it was. And the environment at 9,000 feet is completely different than what you're going to get almost anywhere else in Jalisco. So it was an interesting concept that this one guy had. He said he was going to make it's called, did I tell you the brand? It's Alto Canto. Um, and it's in the app. You can look it up, and it's super cool. It has like it's 100% Tahona, uh,
Mm.
cooked in small brick ovens. They cook for a long time. It's in wooden fermentation tanks. Um, there's copper in the stills and stuff, and just natural. They don't add yeast. It's just natural fermentation,
Oh wow.
wild yeast, and it's very interesting profile. That's just what that product, that distillery at that altitude gives. It was crazy, like it's way up there. So like you could see like the bottom of the clouds, kind of like across the tops of the trees and across the top of the distillery. It's like always kind of, it's always kind of like a little bit damp and moist in the air,
Wow.
which is totally different than what you would get, let's say, down in Tequila, right? Where it's just
Absolutely.
dusty and dry.
Right.
So,
It's a dry heat.
yeah. So I'm just saying, you should look for this brand, Alto Canto, because when it comes out, it's gonna really blow a lot of people away. Like it's got its own unique personality, and which I super appreciate. It's uh it's a really refreshing thing to see that that the industry, there's a place in the industry for brands who are doing this. So look for it sometime,
Absolutely.
maybe March-ish or so. It should be kind of like available probably in a couple of places online where you can order it.
I got it marked in my app.
I haven't even talked about anybody. This is an exclusive that you just got.
We appreciate it. Uh, uh, I'm getting a fair amount of questions in, and we'll get to those here just shortly. So the like I was noticing the lately when I've been, what what can we expect for 2024 and the Tequila Matchmaker app? I see that you're already starting to tweak some stuff, and it's got
Yeah,
me really curious, and that's the reason why I reached out to you. I figured, this would be an awesome event. Plus, help the other people understand what kind of a tool they got on their phone.
okay. Well, first, we just updated the iPhone version to include an updated distillery profile screen. I don't know. Are you an iPhone
Yes,
user?
yes, and that's where I first noticed it. On the distillery page, the lines are different, and you got the additive free symbols on the
Yeah,
left
yeah.
hand side, and it's like, okay, I'm seeing
Okay.
changes.
So, we decided to when we first launched the app, we just had a single page website that was tequilamatchmaker.com, and it just had like, hey, download the app, right? And
Hmm.
so it would just a link there to the app stores. That was it. But then I decided, you know what? It'd probably be better if we just exposed all of our content, all of the ratings, all of the products, e- everything. Just like create a website that showed everything, like a free version of the app where you didn't have to log in or anything like that. And we had some advisors telling us like, no, don't do that because then you'll get fewer downloads and people won't like, sign up for the app and they'll just like get the free stuff off of the web. And I was like, I don't know. I think that if they will show up more in Google, it'll just be like a better uh, way to promote the app. So we just went ahead and did it. And so the website uh, has been kind of it's the same, same data and stuff like that, but it always had a different design, a different look, and it would develop. We'd have different features. Like we added this new distillery screen to the website first,
Hmm.
and a lot of people were giving us comments like, "Man, I would love to have all of the stuff that you have on that distillery screen. I would love to have that in the app." And so we got around to creating a design to bring all of that information into the app. It took a while because we were a very small team. Um, but then we just rolled it out, and so you're now able to see photos inside the distilleries. You're able to see the types of equipment that's on site in each distillery, um, and uh, and then yeah, we included the little additive free logo for all the brands at that distillery that are in the program. Um, so that's an update that rolled out for iOS. The Android version is always it's always a little lagging behind because I'm an iPhone user. So um, the Android version of that is coming out probably in maximum 2 weeks from now. And but uh, we are also in the process of completely redoing the app, and so we're starting over. And we're building. We have a new design. It's probably about 80% done right now. That design, and then it's going to go into programming, and it takes a while. It's probably going to take about 6 months for us to get the new version of the app done and up and running and available. But once it's up, oh my God, this new version. I'm super excited about like the new interface. It's like way faster. Search, like there's a really aggressive advanced search capabilities coming. And there's one feature that so many people have asked for, um, that we're finally going to implement, and that is a thing called My Home Bar.
Yes, I
Did you
have requested that.
you did?
Yes, I reached out to you quite a few years ago, and it's like, man, you know what this app needs? Because there's nothing like going shopping, and I was like, do I have that at home? I can't remember. And to
Oh,
actually have my
sounds like you have a
bar,
real tequila buying problem if you can't keep track of what you have. My God,
a little bit,
worse than me.
not quite as much as you, I bet.
No, it sounds worse. Um, yeah, so the way this is going to work is you'll have an area that can either be public or private. Like you can share this with the world, or you can keep it to yourself, or a blend, right? You
Mhm.
could decide to share only certain products, and then you can keep track of what you have and what you don't have, what you need to restock on, and uh, and so that should be a pretty fun area for people, I think. Uh,
Yes. It,
See how people use it.
I also use it as a tool to help my wife figure out what I want. So
Well,
I
you could use the wish list for that,
Yeah, the
right?
wish list, yes. But I've been using the wish list to somewhat keep. Now I haven't been keeping it updated for a while. I built my own little app for my stuff that I have, but she can't get onto it. And
Well,
but I've been using your wish list as my bar, and then as I run out, I just remove it and so forth.
oh,
So
well, we have a much better tool coming for you. So,
I am so excited about that part. Yes, and I'm getting I am getting a few people on here that is also very excited for that feature.
oh, cool.
So I think that will be a home run. It will definitely drive me to the app more
Yeah.
and use more of its functionality, just because I will be able to go and use it as a shopping tool as well as when I'm out with my friends and I want to brag about what I got.
Yeah, I know. And I also thought of there was another side benefit, right? That where if you decided to make something public, like
Yeah.
you could essentially do a search across all the people on the app and say, okay, who has a old school teardrop Chinaco, right? And there's somebody that has it, and you send them an email like, hey man, like, how
Oh,
can I get that? And so there's like there's a secondary potential use of this. I'm interested in seeing if some people take advantage of that discoverability,
yeah,
of bottles you may
absolutely.
have that are special.
Well, stop using Facebook to sell or purchase
Yeah,
tequila.
we can't say sell.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Trade.
yeah, but just you know.
Yeah, we don't do that in my site. Not at all. You're gone. Mine's pretty open, and a lot of good people in there, and a lot of people wanting to be more educated, and I just thought this was the perfect environment, having you on to discuss it and so forth. I guess my next question would be: is there going to be any link between the website being able to log on and see your stats and stuff along with the app? Because right now you really don't log on to the web page. That's strictly done on your phone.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like an Instagram model, right? Where you
Yeah.
kind of like do all the stuff in the app. I kind of like that approach just for security purposes. It's a lot more difficult for people to create, let's say, bots and create fake accounts and
Yeah.
fake ratings and like all that stuff. It also means that we don't have to worry about security on the web. Like, it's just we worry about security in the app, but we don't really have to worry about the website side
Right.
because there's no login. Um, I don't know. Maybe there'll be some kind of like a partial um, thing where you can use some of the tools, but that'll come like
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, a ways down
later.
the road. Yeah.
But I think rating will always be in the app. I don't think we would ever create a rating interface in on the web just because it would be too easy for people to to scam it and stuff like that.
Right. The one thing that I've struggled with a little bit, and I don't know how to handle it, and maybe you have a suggestion, it is, from year to year, season to season, my profile changes a little bit where I might be chasing Blancos, for a period of time, and then, you know, my ratings for the Anejos or Reposados change. And for this new period of time, whatever I'm in, um, I don't know how to get the app to, still be a tool to where I can use it to help me pick tequilas. Because if I was an anejo or repo, how do I, kind of start turning it the other direction without messing up all the rankings for the other expressions or bottles?
So we're there's a couple changes we're going to make to the ratings process. One, which has also been like often requested, is we're going to separate out the ratings of uh, recommend, value, would you buy or drink this again. So the 0 to 100 point score is going to be based completely on aroma, flavor, and finish. So 40 points for aroma, 40 points for flavor, and 20 points for finish. Um, so that change is coming.
Okay.
We're also talking about, and this is gets to your point, is trying to figure out a way how you can rate something more than once, because but retain your history, right? So
Right.
if you came in on January and you rated, a particular tequila, and then you came back in July and you rated that same tequila again, and you know what? Now you thought a little bit different of it. Um, it'd be kind of cool to have a way for you to have like maybe a little chart, a little fever chart that just kind of goes up and down based on what you think of that product at the moment. Um, it's just to feed back that information to you as to how your palate is evolving.
Right.
We've talked about that as an interface, and how would we handle it on the back end with the data, and then how would we display that in the interface back to the person, um, and then the little rules that would go along with it, like how many hours or days would need to go by before it counted as like
Right.
a new
Right.
rating. Um, That's something we're talking about still. I don't think anyone on the team has come up with any concrete solutions for how that would go. But we do know that the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get the new structure of the ratings um, up and running first, and then we can figure out like what can we do uh, for
To take
time
some of
based.
those migrations of the old data and somehow convert it into the new data.
We figured that out. We figured
Okay.
out how to do that. Um, we have a whole mechanism in place that's going to be able to convert one to the other, um, but uh, the other part, the other part is going to be, it's going to be more complicated.
Yes, I get it. And I'm a data nerd as well. I build programs to help
Oh,
sell a lot of product, and you know in another industry.
yep.
But yeah, so I understand the frustration and trying to create a rating system. Even in my own mind, it's kind of tricky, especially if you're still trying to maintain that 100-point scale, unless you let it go over 100, because your palate's changing somehow, you know, and let it migrate the old stuff down a little bit. It's tricky, but there's got to be some algorithm that you can do to do that, and right off, and with a couple of glasses, I'm not
Yeah,
going to be
it's,
able to
I
solve that
mean,
tonight.
the reason why we decided to make the change is because we've gotten a lot of feedback from people as to how are they how they're using it. Some people will stick to like the good rule followers, right? They'll like stick to what it says there. Like this is the only points are for aroma, the flavor, for finish, for value, and all that kind of stuff. Um, and but other people are like, you know what? I don't really. I taste it and I go, 91, right?
Yeah.
And then they just like figure out where it needs to fill in the numbers enough to get. So with so many people using the rating system in a different way, it was like, we should probably bring this into a way where everybody's going to use it more the same, commonly the same, right? And so knowing that the data that exists, really the only number that people are looking at is that final, 0 to 100 number. We kind of have to stick to that, and
Yes.
then when we have the new interface, we can allow people to convert. Hey, we have the new system. Do you want to convert that into, the new system? And if they say yes, great, they can edit their rating and put it in the new format. If not, they can just leave it there, and it just stays that number. Um, it'll take a little while, and some people will never change their stuff, which is fine. It's all going to work, no problem.
Yeah, and like what we were talking earlier, with year over year, you get, like you were mentioning, celery, and now you're starting to taste more anise. It may change what expression I like. Add a little bit more of the wood in, or this the seasoning of the barrel to it.
Yeah.
To maybe mask what I don't like so much, or something. I've gone from anejos all the way to blancos, and now I'm at repos, and I seem to be in that trend. Every once in a while, I'll grab an anejo, but for the majority of the part right now, it's blanco and repo. So
Are you high proof blanco, or are you just?
yes, I do like some of the high proof blancos. I like some of them. Some of them just a little bit too much heat, and then I kind of lose all the other flavor that I'm expecting, that I'm traditionally used to in their standard proof stuff. But man, there is some amazing high proof tequilas out there right now.
Yeah, it seems to be like a trend that's happening right now.
I would say my first real good experience with a high proof was Antonicio. We went down there and visited with Renee, and got to try his high proof down there, and I was just amazingly impressed with it. And it's like, man, this is pretty good, and I don't have to drink as much. So yeah, it's good. It's always an experience. In I don't say one brand or one expression is all I follow. I feel each brand has an expression that is the shining star. I'm not always going to say that, it's always Repo or Anejo or Blanco. I think every expression has a shining star that, I like. And I love to buy them all and experiment and play with it and figure out which one it is that turns me on the most.
Yeah, I mean, tequila is extremely complex. The agave gives us a lot to work with. It's a real special gift that or relationship between species of like humans and agave. Like they are really agave is giving us a gift. Really is.
Right.
And and so and there's all these different processes in place in all these different distilleries, and it all just kind of like brings out the different gifts that the agave has, depending on how the distillery does its work. I've been in, I think I just counted 84 different distilleries, tequila distilleries, since we've been living here, and every single one's different. Every single one is different. It's always fascinating to see how their approach to making tequila is.
Yeah.
And that's why every distillery kind of tastes different. It's really kind of cool. There's a lot of aromas and flavors that are naturally there, and I love when I go to distilleries that honor that, that like really or get excited about that. Let that shine through.
It'll be interesting to me because Cascouine, is definitely one of my top tequilas, and they do everything very old school. You know, they have the brick ovens and the Tahona and so forth. And now that, you know, Sergio Cruz at 1414's got the Tahona, to see how much the flavor profile changes now that they added, you know, that wheel to it. You know, will it get it a little bit more minerality out of it because of the stone? You know, what is it going to do to change what we're currently drinking today out of 1414? And what's it going to do tomorrow with that
Yeah,
wheel?
that's going to be interesting to taste.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty amazing deal. I mean, I I love Cascouine. I love everything that comes out of it, and you know, I wonder many times if it is, you know, the Tahona wheel that, besides the amazing cook, I mean, just the raw agave. I mean, to me, that's probably the best raw agave I've tasted down in Mexico.
You know, I mean, if you think about the Tahona process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there's a stone wheel, right, and it's going in a circle and stuff like. But what's also happening is there's more the agave itself has more time exposed to air,
Hmm.
and it's more contact with the surroundings, the stone and the pit, and it's spending longer exposed to air, and what that means is there's a lot more ambient yeast and organisms, bacterias, that are able to kind of like settle in and make their presence known. So when you're tasting a Tahona product, um, I mean, you might think like, oh, this is the taste of the stone that's running around. Yeah, I guess that's partly true, but it's just like a completely different experience than a roller mill, which just the agaves kind of come out of the oven and then they go right through the roller mill and they don't spend much time.
Right.
The sugars don't spend that much time in contact with the rest of the environment before they're out into a truck. So totally different with Tona. It really is kind of like a dirtier, in a good way, right? Like it's
Right.
it's
Right.
like a more
More exposed to
reflective
the
of the environment.
atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I find that very interesting because it kind of gives a sense of place. You do get the environmental yeasts interacting with the product, and it really does. It tastes like more rounded too, like any of that
Hmm.
old school stuff. Really rounded and complex. Uh, Whereas the faster process is a little more single note, and that's all because of the fermentation. Really, it's just what the yeast is doing with the agave.
Let's see. All right, let's start grabbing some questions here. Uh, People are wanting to know on that tequila that you mentioned. Can you say who the master distiller is?
Um, I don't remember his name.
Yeah, somebody says that's not disclosed.
Yeah, I can get that information.
I also, you know, something else that I've noticed here lately with your data it seems like you're adding more data attributes to the app as well.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, it seemed like you had your basic 15, 20, and now all of a sudden you're 30, and it seems like it's you're answering more of the questions. How long's the, and I'm just going to pick out some that, it just seems like it's out there. Open air fermentation. It,
Yeah, as we learn more from distilleries, and as distilleries start to do innovative things, and they're pushing and trying all kinds of stuff, we then go, oh, this is a whole new thing you're doing here that's never been done. We've never heard of this, and so we'll go in, we'll add that to the app, And the next thing you know, several people are doing that, and more. There's yeah, we're always updating the production details.
If a tequila brand does a blue agave grows that high with that humidity, how much sun does it get up there? Just wondering.
Um,
And
so they have blue agave growing around that distillery, and it looks terrible. To be honest, it's not the right environment for blue agave. It's too high. So they don't use agave from up there. I believe they're getting their agaves from the Tequila Valley,
okay.
and then trucking them up to the distillery. Um, there are other agaves that are growing wild all around that area of the distillery, but these are just like giant agaves. You know those giant agaves, really huge, thick leaves that can withstand like really cold temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
The blue agave cannot tolerate the winters at 9,000 feet. So they struggle. They struggle to kind of like make it up there. You know,
That's unfortunate.
yeah. But he selected that location because it was a really interesting place for fermentation to occur. Um,
And didn't you say they used natural yeast up there?
yep.
I mean, how much natural yeast, or are they
Oh,
are they fermenting the yeast and using that compared to El Telicano, that has the mango trees right outside the door, and
well, okay. So on the distillery, if you if you go to the website, you could see photos of the inside of the distillery, and you should be able to see. Hopefully, I shot the right picture for this. But there's just like an open screen mesh at the very top, around the just below the roof, but above
yeah,
top of the wall. That is a constant environmental cross breeze that comes in, and so you're getting that environmental yeast constantly in there. Eventually, what happens in all these distilleries is that um, either the yeast that you add or the yeast that's from the environment just kind of puts a fingerprint on it, and it lives in the walls and the floor and the tanks, and if it's a wood tank, it's like in the little crevices of the wood, and it just kind of keeps regenerating over and over again with each batch. So um, you know it may in these places it may take a really long time for fermentation to start for like the first batch, but after that, you know it kind of gets a faster rate.
gotcha. One of the guys wanted to know, because you can go into your app and really start to pick out the different aromas and flavors. How many people really use that structure or that type of data set to in the app versus just picking out 90,
You mean how many people are saying like I'm getting
tasting
orange
anise, or
peel, or
yeah, 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 yeah.
um well, not as many as like we would like. When I rate, what I like to do is use that first. I like to go through there, and I'm not even trying to I'm not thinking about numbers or anything like that. I'm just sitting there and I'm smelling it, I'm tasting it, I'm thinking, what am I getting here? And have that interface open for the fingerprinting, right?
Hmm.
Interface open, and I'll just be like, okay, yeah, that's caramel, that's butterscotch, okay, that's um, coffee, whatever, and then after that, once I have kind of like a feel for what aromas and flavors are present, it makes it a lot easier for me to go back and do the rating part, because now I'm able to like describe what
Right.
this is, because I took that first step of trying to figure out what it smelled and tasted like first. Um, we have a system in place though, because when people leave descriptive comments. Those are my favorite raters, by the way. People who mention why they like or don't like something. Um, we have a system that reads that information and looks for those keywords. So if you're saying anise, if you're saying spearmint, um, this is picking those up out of your review, and then in the back end, going and creating that fingerprint for you. So if you rate something and you leave descriptive comments and you come back like a week later or so, I don't know, whenever system runs and
Hmm.
executes this program, you'll see if you go into the fingerprint area that some stuff's already selected for you.
Wow.
So that's how we're able to have a much uh, fuller data set of all those numbers you see in the aroma and flavor uh, in the website and in the app, right? So, and that's really helped with the matching and the algorithms. So,
Yeah. Let's see if there's any other ones that. All right. We'll leave it at that. Now let's go ahead and talk about this new CRT letter that has just recently came out. What do you think we're going to expect?
I really don't know, but I am uh, giving the CRT the benefit of the doubt at this point. Um, I consider what they're doing to be a step in the right direction. I think they deserve credit for finally getting to this point. Um, I want to make it clear. I do not want to be doing this. What we're doing. I don't want to be running this additive-free program forever.
Right.
Um, we went to the CRT. We had a meeting with the CRT years ago, 3-ish
Yeah, I think that's what you
years
said
ago.
just on a post that I saw the other day.
That meeting was 3.5 hours long, and they explained to us how they didn't appreciate what we were doing, and they asked us to stop. And we said, no, we actually think you should do this. The customer, the consumers, the drinkers, the fans of tequila are very interested in this, and we think you should respond by providing a service for that your customers, your drinkers, um, would like. It would put tequila in a whole nother category. It would be like no other spirit, um, and we would get on board with this and love it if you would do a program. And they said that no, we can't do that. It's like, okay, well, you know, I guess we will. And so we've been doing it now. It's been about 3 years,
Hmm.
and it's really caught on, and people are very appreciative of what we're doing. We're not trying to be a regulator. That's not our goal. We don't, it basically all just started because we were getting, well, uh, in the app, you'll see production details, right? And so in the very, very beginning, there were some brands like Fortaleza, and Siete Leguas, and Ocho, right? These are brands that we know very well. We know the production process. We're there at the distillery all the time. Um, we knew that there were no additives in any of those products. So we created a little area in the app where it just said no additives. And it just was a little attribute that was in the production process things. Well, I mean, then we started getting emails and phone calls and messages from all these brands that clearly 100% do have additives. And they were like, please put the no additives. We don't use additives. And it's like, come on. And so that's when I realized, I was like, oh, okay. This is a tough, sensitive, touchy subject. And if we're going to put no additives in, we need to have a whole process. We need to have like a way that we can go and check and make sure that this is true, and just for our own data, like just so that our data itself was as clean and accurate as we could make it. Um, and so we took everything down, like we took all those attributes away, and we came up with a new process, and we published that process. If you want this check mark, then you need to follow all this stuff. And we didn't expect anyone would do that because it was really kind of invasive. Um, we were asking a lot, but no, all these brands came forward and they said, like, let's do this. Yeah, absolutely. And so we did, and it just started catching on and growing, and still to this day. And at a certain point, it started to get the big brands upset. Um, I still don't know what they're going to do or what they want to do about this. But I just want to make sure everybody knows, like, we shouldn't. Scarlett and I, we should not be in this business. This is for the CRT to do.
Yeah.
And to see that they are now making an announcement that says, okay, they're going to form a committee, and now they're gonna see what they can do. I am hopeful that they will be able to do this, and then we can stop doing this. We can take their data and move on with our lives.
It's got to
That's
be
my
a
hope.
bit of a struggle, going to all these different distilleries and, of course, with just you and your wife. And I don't know if you have any other people going out there with you or going to these distilleries. I mean, there's 270 some distilleries now. And
There's about 100 and, well, 180 or so, but about 160 kind of really, active. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of driving, um, but it's cool. I mean, I like going to
yeah,
distilleries, and I like the production aspect of things, and I think it's interesting always.
but you can only be in so many places at once,
Yeah. So one of the changes we made this year, we started it last year, but now it's a mandatory thing for everybody. Is that lab testing? We do lab testing for all the new brands that are coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because a lot of the new brands are contacting us and saying, we're additive free, we want to be on the list. Okay, well, we're going to send your product to the lab, and then after that, once it passes the lab test, then we'll go to the distillery. Because I got tired of going to the distillery first and spending an entire day there, only to come back and realize, like, dudes, what's going on? You do have additives. So now we test first before I go out there, and you would be shocked with how many brand owners think that their product is additive free, tell people about it. It's in their sales pitch, um, only to find out that no, that's not the case. We run it and we put it in the lab test, and then it comes out not what they think it is. They're usually very shocked, and then it creates an awkward conversation that they have to have with their distillery.
Yeah.
But at that point, we're like, hey, we're out of this. Like, just you work it out, and then you come back when you're ready, okay? But, like, just so you know, this is where you're at, and we give them the full lab report. I'm telling you, you would be shocked how many brand people don't actually know what's in their own tequila. You would be shocked. I'm still, I, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've heard a couple of stories, and in fact, one was just on uh, a few months ago. Chris with Cardenas Tequila,
mhm.
and he was telling the story of when he was seeking out this distillery, they bottled somebody else's tequila and gave it to him, and you know it's like, hey, I'm in. I want this tequila. And he's like, then they kind of fessed up that they couldn't do that. It was actually somebody else's tequila, and they ended up having to create their own tequila, which I think worked out well for them.
I mean, look, it makes sense, right? Like, if you're a brand, and you come down to Mexico, or if you run your own distillery end to end, you're responsible for everything. That's one thing. If you're if you don't, if you're a contract brand and you use somebody else's distillery, and you get on a plane and you come down here for like this, I am there this week during production. I'm part of the production. I'm overseeing and part of it. I take that level of interest in my product. You're generally gonna get a better product, right?
Right.
But if you're one of the many brands that just gets on the phone and just hey, send us another pallet. And by the way, can you make it a little sweeter this time? Like that, those kinds of brands that are disconnected
Right.
from the process uh, are gonna have they're the ones that are gonna run into the problems with the surprise. Like they don't, they're not aware of what's really in their tequila. So
Um, so probably the biggest question I've had asked so far, because everybody's knowing this is coming on, Patron. They were on the list of additive free. Of course, when they got bought out, they fell off the list. And I'm being told they're back on the list.
they're not back on the list. Um, that's that hasn't happened yet. I can't really go too much into too much details on that because that's an open discussion.
Yes.
But in terms of like, yeah, they, I get a lot of some people are really upset with me because I I used to be a Patron doubter. Like I used to be like a jump on the bandwagon and hate them. And then they just said, you know what? Why don't you just come and visit us? And so I was like, well, we'll come visit, but you have to let us see in every door and ask any question and not hide anything. And they were like, sure, come on. And I'm like, oh, well, let's see how this goes. So we went there, Scarlett and I went there, and we were full of like, we were like, oh yeah, this is going to be it. This is going to be something. And we went there, and they were amazing. They were like extremely open, and they answered every one of our questions, and we can go in any door we wanted to. The team was super passionate and in touch with what was going on. They really were a great team, and they were getting a bad rap. And I was like, oh God, I really have to tell the truth, and it would be easy for me to just stay on the same hate bandwagon,
Mm-hmm.
but I just didn't feel it was deserved in this case. So I was always like, you know what? Okay. Um, these guys deserve credit for what they're doing. They don't have to do the things the way they're doing them, but they are. And so that started a decent relationship we had with them, where they were open with us and would share things with us, and we would, it was a nice, refreshing relationship. Then they got bought by Bacardi, and a lot of those people that were on the team that were like so special to us and were so open with us started leaving, or they would get fired or phased out or whatever, or a Bacardi person would be moved into their spot and their position would be eliminated or whatever. These things
Yeah.
happen when
Big corporate.
yeah.
Right.
So then, with fewer of those people in place, when we went back to do our annual recertification, or I can't say certification, visit or
Yeah.
visit.
Yeah. We'll stick with that.
They they were less like people who didn't really know who we were, and we're like, why do you need to take a picture of that agave? Why are you looking over there? And I was just it was like a strange relationship, and they wouldn't let us go through our entire process, right? um so we said, we're unable to finish our process here, so like we're gonna have, do you realize that you would have, if we can't finish the process? It was like we needed to see some records, basically,
Right.
that they didn't want
And
to
I
show
kind of
us.
remember that.
And so I said, well, okay, then we'll just have to. I mean, if we can't complete the process, then you'll drop off the list. And like, oh, let's work on, So eventually, they couldn't agree to give us that level of access that we once had. And so we're like, okay, that's your choice. I mean, no issues here, but like, you'll just won't be on the list. And so they dropped off the list, and are still not on the list. So
So do you think that they realized that there's more to just, being a big brand and being the Giant or the Costco or the Sam's, that little insignia means more than what they realized. So now they're revisiting, maybe? We'll leave it at that.
well, I mean, like if you look at what Patron does, right?
Hmm.
Even to this day, I haven't been in the distillery in a couple of years now because the
Right.
relationship isn't what it was. Um, but if you look at what it is and what they do, it's a natural fit for them. I mean, their whole thing is just like small scale production, but lots of small scale production, lots of
Right.
little stills, and lots of wood fermentation tanks, and lots of tallness. And so it's actually a way different process than you're going to see for any of their big industrial players. So it's kind of a match for them to be in a program like this. um, but as I said before, like, well, when we go through our process, it's kind of invasive. So like, I wouldn't expect, and I don't expect all tequila makers to be cool with it. Like, yeah, you have to be practicing radical transparency in order to make it through uh, our process and onto our list. So um,
And I would say I think we have similar mindset, always analyzing people and data and stuff like that. That I've seen, and I'm actually going to call it out. Don Rico tequila, when it first came out, everybody was just so much of a hater. There's no way that this could be additive free, and they're bashing them. And then the week that they announced they were additive free, it just seemed like watching, in my group that, people were like, oh, where can I get this? Of course, I think it was only available in California and Texas at the time. And how much that little emblem means to the, and I'm going to use this word lightly, the purist, whether that they will drink it or not, and until it gets that little emblem,
well, I
they
mean,
they're kind of haters.
well, but people
It-
by
it-
by nature, I think people are generally skeptical, right,
yes,
of any and all marketing claims,
right.
um, and rightly so. You need, having an independent third party, come in there and say, no, this checks out. It goes a long way for a lot of people. Um, but I think the problem was that, before we started going through this process, nobody knew, nobody had any idea
No.
what a real tequila is supposed to taste like. I mean, it was very confusing. There was a lot of things that were obviously fake, um, and there were some things that were obviously not fake. But then there was this whole middle ground where people really was like, "Is that must be?" And so everybody like was just guessing. And so our goal was just to come up with a list, you know,
Hmm.
not everything, every possible tequila in the world that it doesn't have additives would be on the list, but just enough so that there would be an accurate sampling of very diverse aromas and flavor profiles. Um, that if you stuck to that list long enough, um, drank only stuff on that list, you kind of your palate kind of resets itself so that it like
I
now
agree.
it knows. it knows the sway of where things are, what's a naturally possible product. And so that, and when you venture off and you're at like a wedding or a friend's house or something like that, like, hey, try this, and you try it, and it's just like way out of left field. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, right? That's that. Now you know. So I think we've been able to do is give people that range, those tools that they would need to calibrate their own palate. And I'm seeing a lot more people, I feel, who are more accurately uh, being able to state whether something they think has additives or not, um, even if it's not on our list. So, I feel like that's been helpful to the community.
Do you think the CRT is going to hold the manufacturers or the brand as accountable as what you and Scarlet have done over the years?
I would hope so. I would hope they could. I mean, I think the CRT, um, who are the only regulators, I want to make that clear,
Yes.
um, are capable of doing this in a much bigger scale, much more in depth, much more thorough than we ever could. They have the resources, they have the machines. Um,
They have the people.
all they have to do is want to do it.
Right.
And so, uh, you know, y- yeah, they can do it if they want to. It's just, do they want to? Then they could definitely do it more thorough than we ever could.
Awesome. I think that pretty much concludes what we got going on. Any other small announcements that you like to?
I don't know. I think we talked about a lot. Probably maybe a little
Yes,
too
we
much.
did. We've been on here a lot longer than I thought we would be. You have your own. We'll do a little plug in here for you. You have your own little tequila tasting experience.
Oh, plugs. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah, we have a house. We have a tasting house called Casa Lotecito. It's in Tlaquepaque, which is like right outside of Guadalajara. It's like
Hmm.
kind of between the airport and Guadalajara. Um, we set up a little tasting house there. It has our little distillery in it, and you know, we have fun distilling experiments there, and tastings and educations. We have an additive-free bar, which is a full-size bar that we built upstairs in this house. It's a fun experience, and you can sign up to book time with us on tastetequila.com, the website. And just yesterday, and I'm not wearing the shirt. I probably should have been wearing the shirt. Is this new shirt that we just put up for sale, called it says Respeto on it, which means respect, and it's got a picture of agave on it.
Yeah, yeah, with the little frame or something
Yeah.
around it. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Good looking shirt.
And it's all about like having respect for the agave, and the, really tequila doesn't need anything, right? It doesn't need anybody's help by putting in vanilla or caramel or whatever. It's good on its own, right? So, and we were just sitting around one day talking about this stuff. I'm like, is it disrespectful to the agave to be putting additives and stuff? Yeah, I don't know. Is it? I don't know. And so, if you were an agave, and you were like 7 years in the brutal sun, uh, you know, growing and producing sugar, and and you give your life up to, to be to be distilled and put in a bottle, and would you be like bummed if you were just like, oh, you're not good enough, we're gonna have to put more stuff in here, you know? I don't know.
That's an awesome perspective.
So it's like respect for the agave is what this shirt's all about, and you can
Yes.
get that on tastetequila.com too. Um,
And then one more. We'll do one more plug for you or
I don't know if I have
questionnaire.
anything else. Do I have anything else?
Well, I'm going to do one for you. I'm going to help you out here. So I know that you've been playing with, your own little stills in the house and, you're getting some agaves. Can we anticipate a brand at some time?
Uh, What do you think? I mean, no way, man. My God.
No way.
Uh, the Lotecito stuff is all about learning, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, putting your money where your mouth is, and if you're going to be critical of somebody's making tequila, you better have tried it yourself first. That's what I was thinking. And so, in addition to that, we're trying to get a better feel for what are the aromas and flavors that are naturally happening, what are coming off of the still. If we're going to run an additive free program, it would probably be in our best interest to know, yeah, you know what, cotton candy doesn't come off the still. That's not natural. And so that's been really educational. It's a phenomenal experience to be able to stand next to a still as it's running, and then to constantly smell it as it's doing its run. It's changing constantly,
Yes.
and so always fascinating and different each time. But we realize that there's a natural band of stuff that you should expect, and that's been really interesting for me as an educational experience. So that's why we set up the Lotecito, and then we'll make what 18 last batch with 18 liters. I mean, that's tiny.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we'll make and then people come over to Casa Lotecito and they can try it, and sometimes they can take a bottle home. It's just very small scale and it's just fun for us to do.
Awesome. Well, Grover, I deeply appreciate your time this evening. I think it was an amazing educational deal with your app, and I'm really looking forward to these new settings. A lot of people are asking how soon already, and you said you were about 80% there. So
Well, we're 80% on the design, and
yes.
then it's going to probably take another 6 months once it gets into development. Um, I mean, like we're just there's like 3 people, in the company, so it takes a while. It's just like a really good tequila, right? Slow and low.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Grover, if you hang in there for 2 seconds, again, I appreciate it, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.